Hello and a warm welcome to the Public India. Let's talk about what's happening in Manipur because just a few days ago, there was a telling picture which was beamed across the mainstream channels of the media. And that was how the Manipur police commandos had laid down their arms as a symbolic protest in response to the abduction of the additional superintendent of police of Imphal West. Now, this abduction was allegedly carried out by a Methi vigilante group, whose name was Arambai Tengpol, and there was indiscriminate firing. The property was vandalized. But the million-dollar question is that why are these militant groups now becoming more active? Is Manipur facing the worst times since the last 1 year? We just have the Lok Sabha elections round the corner. There is a possibility and there is a murmur that the Lok Sabha elections might not be held in Manipur. There are growing voices on that as well. So where is the state headed to? Why has the center completely neglected Manipur? It's almost a year. All these questions we'll try and find out answers to. I'm joined by Professor Xavier P. Mao, who is the professor at the Northeastern Hill University. Professor Mao, thank you so much for joining. We have Suhas Chakma, who's the director of the Risks and Rights Analysis Group. Suhas, thank you so much for joining. And I'll begin with Professor Mao. Professor Mao, this latest abduction of the ASP, which happened, of course, he was rescued within hours. But the police commandos laying down their arms, of course, it is a demotivating side for the police commandos. What is really happening? And if Arambai Tangol organizations like these are becoming more active, what does it really indicate about the larger security apparatus of the state?
Arambai Tangol is an organization struggling to revive the traditional pre-Vaishnavism. The Meiteis were converted into Hinduism, into Vaishnava sect. And this Arambai means a particular traditional instrument of fighting, and Tengol is a group. And since this group is becoming larger and larger in all the Meitei area, they have been attacking even the Christian, though they have not attacked the Hindu, but their plan and their agenda is even to attack them and to have a complete revival of the traditional native indigenous religion, which is called Sada Mahi, and thereby various other social activities, etc., they want to revive. And in the process of doing this, building up this, they have been indulging in various types of extortion, assaulting people, and asking money. And in the process, when this police additional SP had taken action against some of the members of the Arambai Tangol people abducted him, assaulted him. Some of his vehicles, properties were destroyed. And then the police came to surround the Arambai Tengol's camp where they were staying. They wanted to fire and forcibly release their additional SP, but the state government refused to give order. And that is how, out of disgust and resentment, symbolically, the Manipur Police Commando have surrendered their weapon. But as I'm told today, by the police officer from Manipur, Imphal, that they have now rejoined their duties.
But Suhas, what is really happening with whomever I'm speaking to? They are saying that it's almost like a situation of a complete chaos. What is really happening? Because we don't get to hear too many stories. Center seems not to be interested at all in what is happening in Manipur. So what are the state and the central government really doing about the problem? Or have they just left the state to its own fate?
The central and state government have not done anything for the last 9 months. They are not expected to do anything in the next 3 months when we have the elections at national level, and the focus is on winning the next election. So when you were free for 8 9 months, you did not have time, or you have not shown the political will or the inclination to take action. I don't think, I mean, we can expect any kind of action at this stage. And basically, the strategy adopted by the state government is to let it die down, because nothing, I mean, shakes the conscience of the people regarding Manipur. I think we all, at the end of the day, have to remind or ourselves, or remember ourselves, is that this situation which exists in Manipur, it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It doesn't exist in Syria. It doesn't exist in Yemen. It is not a conflict between Ukraine and Russia. It is not between, Israel and Gaza. So you have a situation which is part of India, the most
No, but are
powerful
you
country.
saying that Manipur now is worse than Syria or Ukraine or other conflict zones? Is it worse than those conflict zones?
Yes, because even in what to say, Syria and Yemen, you will not have situation where somebody would defy the authorities, whether you recognize them or not recognize them. There's a particular authority in Syria and Yemen which will not be defied. But in this particular case, you have the law enforcement authorities being defied by the private and militia groups, uh, and the authorities are surrendering themselves. So joining duty, it makes no difference when at the end of the day, the police, if they have joined the duty, they have surrendered to the Arambai Tengol, because uh, there is no arrest from the other side. The case has been registered. So, I mean, the authority the of the region, in Manipur, it's the state government of Manipur, it's the Union of India, and they have surrendered themselves to the militia group, which is not happening even in Yemen or in Syria. So you have to say that it's worse than that in terms of law and other situation. Even if you cross the border in Myanmar, in certain groups, dictates cannot be defied by the others.
Right.
So we have a case here. The recognized authorities, uh, dictates are being defied openly, and authorities are not able to take any action. So that's what makes it so different from other territories.
Right. But Professor Mao, in a latest development, I was reading that the Manipur Assembly has adopted a resolution to abrogate the SOO deal with the Kuki outfits, the suspension of operation agreement. Now, what does that really mean? And is it really going to change the situation in any way in Manipur?
Well, it may perhaps change a little bit once the ceasefire is removed. Then the Kuki militants may be free to operate the way they like. And earlier, the ground rule observation will be completely removed. So the possibility of indulging in hit and run or ambushes here and there may happen if the abrogation is accepted by the central government. Thereby, they are not extending the ceasefire.
All right. But what about the different other groups which are regrouping, like the Nagas? We were talking on the phone yesterday where you said that, the
Yeah.
Nagas have also become active. Then on the one hand, you have these vigilante groups like Arambai, Tangol becoming very active. So what happens if all these militant groups, they get together, they form a conglomerate, and, then they start functioning? What is really going to happen? Is it going to lead to more lawlessness? Or do we see something new happening within the political landscape of Manipur?
With regard to the Nagas, that is the National Socialist Council of Nagalim or Nagaland, Isaac Moiba Group, till today they are having indefinite ceasefire with the government of India, although the negotiation is absolutely fruitless. But nonetheless, the talks are going on and indefinite ceasefire is there. But what is happening to the Naga civil organization is that since some of the Nagas who come to Imphal, they have been also extorted money, and here and there they have been also assaulted. Thereby, the EPES Naga civil organization, that is United Naga Council, and all Naga Student Association of Manipur, and various other Naga organizations in Manipur have been issuing warning that we will not go on sitting on the fence or sitting and observing silently unless you rein in or you take appropriate action against such extortionists and such assaulters. We will not continue to lying down, accepting everything. And from before, they have also already started preparing themselves, armed training. And that is not by the so-called insurgent, but the civil organization. And the civil organization may start coordinating, start secretly talking with the powerful insurgent group, in which case, I think the Nagas are not that badly divided or having many factions like the Meiteis or the Chin Kuki Mizo group. There are not many factions, but among the Kukis and the Meiteis, Chin Zomi group, lot of factions are there, minimum 20. Therefore, Nagas are that way much more organized and less factions are there and better armed. Even though Aram by Tengol is also after the seizure of the police armory, they are also well armed with sophisticated weapons. But I think once the Naga civil bodies are involved, definitely the Naga insurgent will back them from behind, if not openly involved like the other insurgent group. But so far in the history of the Naga insurgent, they don't openly involve. Partly because, of course, various international bodies have recognized them, including the unrepresented nations and people's organization. But all other organizations are not recognized internationally.
Right. All right. But Suhas, there are growing voices within many groups in Manipur who are saying that the atmosphere is not conducive to hold elections. What are we hearing on that front? Is there a possibility that there might not be any Lok Sabha election in Manipur, given the fact that there is no level playing field right now? The security situation is very, very precarious.
No, I think elections will be held, because if the central government cannot hold the elections, then it means acceptance of defeat. And that is what the central government has been avoiding from the beginning. The only situation which may arise if an organization like Aramba Bengal, basically issues a dictate, or the other groups issue a dictate, saying that no candidate should be put up against during the elections. But the fact remains.
A possibility of that happening, that vigilante groups
No,
might
that's
put up.
not going to happen, because at the end of the day, both the groups are trying to, woo the central government. So the cookie groups, they want, because at the MLS, if you look at it, most of the cookie MLS, they belong to the BJP party. The Meitei MLS also belongs to the BJP party, and you require the support of the central government at certain stages. So I do not think any organization has the capacity to issue this kind of a diktat, and even the Aramba Bengal, they are seen as an extension of the party, or at least have the blessings of the government of the day, and that's why no actions are being taken, and the police are being forced to, humiliatingly surrender their arms, etc. So I would say that the election is going to take place, whatever the situation might be. And the current situation which is arisen has already been, settled in a way after the police personnel have joined. So till the elections, Aramba Bengal may play a much more, subtle role than they have played. They must have been given a message that you do not make the situation absolutely untenable.
Right. But Professor Mao, what are you hearing, within Manipur, that should the elections be held? I mean, the general elections, should they be held in Manipur or should they not be held? Because there are voices which are growing louder that there should be no Lok Sabha elections in Manipur.
I think if the present situation is not allowed to escalate, perhaps election may be held. But if the present situation is allowed to escalate and the central forces, including the Indian Army, are not supporting the Manipur police or Manipur rifles and other Manipur commando, then of course Arambai Tengol being having a very wide network of organization with good equipment of a sophisticated weapon, if this turmoil becomes intensified, I don't think election can be held. Otherwise, even the delimitation of assembly constituencies and also parliamentary constituencies are to be drawn. They have been postponed indefinitely. So during this time, the plan was to do it.
Right. So if the delimitation has been postponed, Suhas, and what is the guarantee that the situation might not escalate? What we saw, how Amit Singh was abducted, then released within hours, police commandos laying down their arms as a symbolic protest, center not saying or doing anything, at least it seems so that it's not doing or supporting Manipur in any way. The state government, what is it doing? Nobody knows. So in this kind of a situation where we cannot judge actually what's happening inside Manipur, what do we assume then? What do we assume?
I think the trigger point would be the extension of the ceasefire agreement with the suspension of operation agreement with the cookie groups. The government of India is in a bind, or it's in a way in a catch-22 situation. You have the state government which is withdrawn from the suspension of operation agreement, but it was in place. And at this point of time, you have a resolution against the extension of these agreements from the state assembly, which in a way should have a bearing on the central government. On the other hand, the problem for the central government is that if you do not extend the ceasefire agreement, then you have a failed state next to yourself, that's in Myanmar, and the areas which are close to Myanmar are the areas inhabited by the scheduled tribes groups, Kukis and the Nagas. And of course, if you withdraw the ceasefire agreement and if you carry out the insurgent operation, anti-insurgent operation, then they can easily go to Myanmar, and of course we become increasingly part of the conflict which is taking place in Myanmar. So therefore, the central government, first of all, it's so difficult to bring the people on the ceasefire on a platform of dialogue. Then, if you agree on the demand of a particular community, because of the conflict which has arisen, because they never objected to suspension of operations earlier. So if the center listens to them, then it's a big problem. So if, for example, the suspension of operation is extended tomorrow, then obviously you will see possibly a completely different reaction from the Métis, including the Arambai Tengol. If it is not extended, I mean, how do you allow it to continue? Because the Kuki armed groups will not be bound by it. So it's a difficult situation, and this is the time I think center has to take a decision. And they would prefer to leave it in a current situation without taking a decision. But I do not see how you could hold on to the armed groups or bind them so long you do not extend
You
the.
said that center will prefer to not to do anything at the moment. So how does that benefit center then? If they don't support Manipur in any way, they let the situation as it is to continue. How does it support the central government? Because they are being cornered on all sides that they're not doing enough for Manipur.
Well, I think for the central government is at least you can, continue with this situation for a long period of time till the elections are held. Then maybe after the elections are held, if they come to power, come back to power, then of course we might see a completely different situation or different response with respect to Manipur. So it's not a permanent solution, but they need to buy out time for at least 3 months. And for 3 months, they just might continue with some kind of an unwritten agreement with the Kuki insurgent groups, saying that we will not, abrogate it, but we will also not extend it. We understand each other, so don't worry, because we are the same people, same party, etc. We'll find a solution. So there are 10 different ways to assuage these sentiments and let it continue. So Arabai Bengal cannot protest about it. The other peoples have been taken into confidence. They will not protest about it. And center buys the time till the new government is formed at the center after the election.
Right. So, Professor Mao, if the center is also trying to maintain some kind of a status quo, they're trying to assuage the sentiments of these militant groups like Arambai Tengol. Uh, what happens really, and what does it really reflect as far as the mindset of the center is concerned? We've always been saying for the last 1 year, because the crisis unfolded on 3rd May last year, and we've been saying that center, it seems, is just not interested in resolving the issues in Manipur. But now that it's pressing for a status quo kind of a situation, what does it reflect on the part of the center? Is it interested, or does it just want to control the things till the time so that the elections are held peacefully? What does that mindset of the center reflect?
Well, I am really, in a way, difficult to say. The center does not have much importance or serious attention for the Northeast. And also, I would say the central government does not have a strong political will. That is the vital point. If central government has a very strong political will, then it will definitely take proactive policy and action. But that is not there. And that is how they just want the situation to naturally develop and evolve. And when it is too much, maybe it may be compelled to intervene. Otherwise, it just want to let things go as it is. That sort of attitude, just let it go. That is my reading about the central government.
All right. So, do we, Suhas, then what do we really make out as what just happened 3 days ago? Does it mean that Manipur is descending into more and more chaos as the time is passing by?
Well, I mean, the way I see it, because Aramba Tangal, they have grown by 624% in the last 9 months.
Okay.
So from 7,000 cadres or members, they have become 50,000 cadres at this point of time.
Okay.
And we all know in Manipur, easy access to arms. But the fact remains, even the armed insurgent groups, they have a command structure. There is a commander in chief, or then people below him, they have to follow the instructions of the orders, etc. Whereas Arambai Tengal is a loosely, ideologically driven organization without any kind of command structure. So at certain stage, the UAIC, even if the conflicts with the cookies and the Métis ends, which will end at certain point of time, there will be direct clashes because the division of the partition has been complete. But what I see is a number of groups will come out of Arambai Tengal, and they will operate in their own way because there is no common structure. If you look at in this country, even when there are established common structure, very disciplined common structure, including the judiciary, you would see sometimes even the Supreme Court of India sitting on Saturday.
But given the fact, Suhas, you're saying that the structure of the Arambai Tengol has grown manifold, and they have grown about 624%. That's what you're saying. So does it mean that the people of Manipur will negotiate their life, their terms of living through these insurgent groups, and that's how the center and the state are thinking of functioning? Are they going to operate through these armed groups?
I think the people do not have to will not negotiate. People will be forced to pay ransoms, extortions, and etc. And center at this point of time and the state government at this point of time are not seeing or foreseeing the lawlessness it will create. And in the northeast, we have seen that an armed group operating with firearms can extract enough money to increase firearms to, I mean, 20 arms in a year's time. So
Right.
the incident which took place or on which the police took action, what was this about? This was daylight robbery of a petrol pump, hijacking the cars, police intercepting, then of course then policemen being taken to task by the Arambai Tangal. So what is this manifestation? This is a manifestation of things to come, and at certain stage, in different areas, different groups will operate. You will not be able to recover the arms. So I see a complete lawlessness in Manipur. It will take decades to overcome it because this is not usual situation which we see in mainland India. In plain areas, there is no way you could hide.
Right.
But in Manipur or in tropical areas with hills, it's completely different. So you would see that, out of this Arabai Bengal, I mean, there will be so many commanders who will be operating on their own.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest threat. And they pose the biggest
Absolutely.
threat to the civilians
It's
in Manipur.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. But to take the concluding remarks from Professor Maud, so what does it mean if there's more power to these armed insurgent groups, which of course is one of the biggest threats to the state of Manipur? What does it mean for a democracy like India? What does it mean for a state like Manipur? And what is the kind of impact it is going to have on other northeastern states? Here you have emboldened insurgent groups who are running amok across the state. So what does it really mean for the people in Manipur?
Well, we claim to have democracy, but actually, in actual term, there is no democracy at all. It is absolutely a kind of euphemistic dictatorship. There is no proper law and order, and the Arambai Tengol has representative in all the region now. They have their own sympathizers, and they are eager to revive their traditional practices, social practices, particularly religious practice, which is known as Sana Mahi, and thereby, since at the moment majority of the Meiteis are Hindu, they are not directly attacking the Hindus, but it is in the agenda even to attack the Hindus. But minority Meiteis are Christian, and those Meitei Christians are being attacked right now. And in this, the state government is not doing anything at all. And the central government is also just having a spectator's role. And therefore, I do not know how, when the situation is allowed to unfold in this manner, complete chaos and confusion may reign, then only they start to come, oh, we have to do something about it. So that attitude may be there. This is my feeling. Therefore, in my opinion, democracy is not there at all. It is only
Right.
in name.
First, I'm tempted to ask another question, and then we will wind up the show. And that is that there is an effort, from the center side to Hinduize everything. Whether it is South, you talk about the Hindutva agenda. North, of course, is seeped into it. Now we see an effort to Hinduize everything in the East as well. Does that look like an agenda? And that is why we are seeing this kind of a polarization between the Metis and the Kukis. Is that what the goal of the central government looks like? And and the state government seems to be abetting it? Suhas?
Well, absolutely. I think across the country, you could see revivalism or re-identification as a Hindu, and it becomes a matter of pride for many people
No,
who
but is
had
that going
some
to
kind
work
of
in a state like Manipur? Is that going to work in a state like Manipur? That's an important question.
no. I think everywhere, not only Manipur, everywhere it's taking place. I think what the central government had failed to note is that when they brought the Citizenship Amendment Act, they exempted the inner line states and the six scheduled areas because they feared violence. And when the violence is done by the mass, the central government cannot address this problems. So therefore, as a preemptive measure, they had to exempt these states. And it was based on the past experiences when the Naga ceasefire agreement was extended in the Naga inhabited areas, right, in the northeast. The State Assembly of Manipur was burned to ashes. And when the permanent residence certificate was being issued to the people who are staying in Arunachal Pradesh, in the heart of the city, Deputy Chief Minister's house was burned down. So the center feared that this kind of violence will come up. And when you have this kind of violence in the northeast, this kind of conflict, that is why it is different from what you see between Hindus and Muslims in the country, and where you have much easier access for law enforcement. But in the northeast, when the mass, lakhs of people, 10% of the entire population of the state, or about 50% of the population of the state have come down, you cannot shoot that many people. So the state had to flee on past occasions, and they are still not understanding that these kind of issues when it comes to Manipur. And that's why very painfully we will see that Manipur will take, at least, I'm not sure about the Kuki communities, but the way new groups have come up in the Imphal Valley, and the Métis will have to unfortunately suffer hell of a lot from these insurgent groups. I mean, because I see, and as somebody who has observed the conflict, it is, I mean, there will be so many groups extorting the citizens, extorting the civilians, that, we will not be able to stop this. You cannot put this genie
No,
back
but
into the bottle.
why can't the center or the state government control these armed militant groups? What is the hitch they have?
At this point of time, they have electoral compulsions, and thereafter they will have more electoral compulsions at the state level. Again, even if you put aside this electoral compulsions at the state level, if you look at the way the insurgency could not be controlled for a long period of time, you could see that it's not a mere law enforcement, because as I say, topography is one of the key factors, and the only advantage which the central government has and the Manipur government has at this point of time is that for the Meitei groups, it's difficult to cross to Myanmar, because then they have to cross through the Kuki inhabited areas. That's the only advantage they have. But as we have seen, the armed groups at certain point of time, even if they hate each other, even if they have killed each other, they'll come around and forge an alliance depending on the necessity. So we are looking at new realities, and today they are fighting each other. Don't be surprised, 2 years down the line, some armed groups belonging to the Meitei communities and some armed groups belonging to the Kuki communities, because of the exigencies of situation, because of their own survival, form some kind of alliance. That's absolutely possible. It has happened.
So Manipur seems is going through a lot of churning, and as of now, these armed insurgent groups are ruling the roost. Center is helplessly watching. State is allowing things to really deteriorate. And what we can sense from what this discussion has happened is that Manipur has descended into a complete state of lawlessness. It has descended into a state of chaos. But the million-dollar question is that in this kind of an atmosphere, can the Lok Sabha elections be held, or will they be imposed on the people of Manipur? Thank you so much, Suhas Chakma, Professor Xavier Mao, for joining. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching the Public of India: subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to the Public of India.
Yeah, thank you very much.